More than 2,000 years ago, on a peaceful mountain, a message was proclaimed that changed the course of humanity. A simple but revolutionary teaching. Words that echo to this day, calling us to live with humility, justice, and love. A path to inner peace and to a more just world. Today, more than ever, these words are a compass for our lives. Prepare to rediscover the message that has crossed the ages. The Beatitudes, the call to live differently and to transform the world. The Sermon on the Mount, a message of hope that never fades. The Sermon on the Mount, delivered by Jesus, is considered one of the most influential passages in the Gospels and is an essential guide to the Christian life. In it, Jesus reveals profound and revolutionary principles, challenging the social norms of the time and offering a higher vision of justice, love, and humility. Among the most striking teachings of the sermon are the Beatitudes, which summarize the character of a true follower of Christ. This essay will explore the Beatitudes, highlighting their meaning and how we can apply them in our daily lives. The Sermon on the Mount, recorded in chapters 5 through 7 of the Gospel of Matthew, was delivered by Jesus on a mountain in Galilee to a crowd that included his disciples and many followers. This sermon contains the essence of Jesus' moral and spiritual teaching, addressing themes such as justice, mercy, forgiveness, and humility. He opens the sermon with the Beatitudes, a series of statements that show the qualities that God values and blesses, setting the tone for his ministry. The Beatitudes express the ideal of character that God expects from believers. The Beatitudes begin with a paradox. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Here, Jesus values spiritual humility, emphasizing that true wealth lies in our dependence on God. He continues with, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted," pointing to divine comfort in the face of life's hardships and losses. Other Beatitudes, such as "Blessed are the meek" and "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness," indicate that kindness, justice, and a yearning for a more just world are qualities that God blesses. Each of the 8 Beatitudes follows this line of offering a new perspective, where virtues that seem fragile or insignificant in the worldly context are exalted as paths to true happiness and communion with God. Jesus' teachings are more than theoretical ideals. They are principles to be lived. Take, for example, the Beatitude of the meek. In today's world, which often values aggression and competitiveness, this may seem like weakness. However, meekness is strength under control, an ability to respond with patience and self-control in challenging situations. In the workplace or in family life, we can practice remaining understanding and patient with others, even in the face of conflict. Another relevant beatitude is to hunger and thirst for justice. In a context of inequality and social injustice, this teaching inspires us to fight for a more just world, engaging in causes that promote equity and respect for human rights. Applying these virtues in our daily lives transforms the way we interact with others, making us agents of peace and reconciliation. Although the Sermon on the Mount was delivered more than 2,000 years ago, its teachings remain extraordinarily relevant. In a world marked by conflict, selfishness, and the relentless pursuit of power, the Beatitudes offer an alternative path to peace, justice, and compassion. Jesus' life was a living example of these principles, and his followers are called to practice them daily, both in their personal relationships and in the public sphere. The contemporary world, with its complexities and challenges, needs these values more than ever. The Sermon on the Mount, and the Beatitudes in particular, offer a unique insight into how we should live our lives in alignment with the principles of the kingdom of God. Jesus calls us to adopt a posture of humility, justice, and mercy, even when these values seem to go against the norms of society. Applying these teachings to our daily lives requires a commitment to loving our neighbors and constantly seeking a life that reflects God's will. Ultimately, the Beatitudes are not just a list of qualities, but an invitation to an inner transformation that impacts both our personal lives and the world around us. This teaching is about spiritual humility, recognizing our limitations and dependence on God. In today's world, Where there is so much pressure for individual success and self-sufficiency, this beatitude reminds us of the importance of pursuing humility. In everyday life, this may mean saying that we don't have all the answers, asking for help when needed, and avoiding arrogant attitudes, especially in the workplace or on social media, where there is a tendency to show off or compete. Practical example: a leader in a company who, instead of trying to control everything, trusts his team, regulating their limitations and fostering a collaborative environment. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Modern application: today, we often avoid expressing vulnerability or pain, preferring to portray an image of continued strength. However, this beatitude encourages us to allow ourselves to grieve and suffer, whether from our personal losses or from the injustices of the world, with the confidence that we will be comforted. This comfort may come through emotional support from others or through faith in something greater. Practical example: when a person loses a loved one, they can find comfort in sharing their pain with friends, family, or support groups, rather than repressing their emotions. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Modern application: meekness, which is often mistaken for weakness, involves the ability to respond calmly and with self-control in situations of conflict or provocation. In an often aggressive and polarized world, practicing meekness means resisting attempts to retaliate, opting for dialogue, and seeking reconciliation, whether in political discussions or personal disagreements. Practical example: in a heated discussion on social media, instead of reacting aggressively, a person responds with patience and respect, seeking to understand the other person's point of view, even if they do not agree. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be filled. Modern application: this teaching is a call to those who feel a deep desire for social and moral justice. In a contemporary context, this can be translated into fighting for just causes, such as equal rights, protecting the marginalized, and fighting corruption. Applying this principle involves participating in social movements, denouncing injustices in the workplace or community, and standing up for those who have no voice. Practical example: a person who volunteers for a non-governmental organization, NGO, that fights against poverty or who participates in campaigns against racism and discrimination. Blessed are the merciful, for they will obtain mercy. Modern application: in everyday life, being merciful means forgiving others more easily, reaching out to help those who are suffering, and showing compassion instead of judgment. In an age of rapid online notifications and cancellations, applying mercy involves giving second chances, understanding that everyone makes mistakes, and caring about the well-being of others. Practical example: a manager who realizes that an employee has made a serious mistake, but instead of immediately firing the employee, offers an opportunity for correction and support to improve. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Modern application: purity of heart is a virtue that involves sincerity, honesty, and pure intention in all actions. In the age of appearances and false narratives, being pure in heart means acting with integrity, without duplicity or ulterior motives. In everyday life, this principle can be applied by being transparent in interpersonal relationships, avoiding manipulation, and seeking the truth in all situations. Practical example: a professional who, instead of using manipulative tactics to get a promotion, acts with honesty and hard work, trusting that his or her efforts will be rewarded fairly. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Modern application: being a peacemaker today is one of the most permissible attitudes, especially in a world marked by political, social, and religious divisions. Applying this blessing in everyday life means working for peace, mediating conflicts, promoting dialogue instead of violence, and uniting instead of dividing. Practical example: someone who intervenes to resolve an argument between co-workers, proposing a respectful dialogue instead of fueling the fight. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Modern application: in a context where those who fight for justice are often ridiculed or even punished, this beatitude encourages us to stand firm on our principles, even in the face of persecution. In everyday life, this means standing up for what is right, even if it results in a loss of popularity or status. Practical example: Tico, an activist who, despite receiving threats or reprisals, continues to denounce corruption in his community, defending human rights and social justice.